G'day YouTubers! It's been way too long. The reason I haven't put anything out for the last 12 months is because it's been bloody rough. Australia last year experienced the worst ever drought in the history books anyway. And that was followed up by frequent dust storms, and it's been a real battle to keep the garden here alive, let alone productive. We experienced, on top of that, the worst ever bushfires. Once again, in the history books, many people around the country lost their homes as a result of these fires. The fires were eventually brought to a halt by a week of flooding rains. We had more rain in 1 week than we got in the whole of last year. And just as things started to return to normal, we were hit by this global pandemic. Extreme weather events seem to be the new status quo for our world. Maybe those climate scientists knew what they were talking about. And of course, they seem to come along with prolonged power outages, fuel shortages, road closures, and the ensuing inevitable panic buying, it seems. One thing you do notice in these difficult times is how resilient people are. The fight, flight, or freeze reactions are on full display. Everyone knows that one person in their lives who lacks resilience. The panicker. I don't think I've introduced you to my twin brother Shane. Shane's moved in with us because he can't currently open his front door. Shane went and stockpiled a little too much toilet paper. And now, ironically, he can't even access his own toilet.
Ha ha! Very funny. How far do you think 2 rolls is going to get us?
Don't worry, brother. I'll teach you the bush bidet technique.
I told you, I've got very sensitive skin, especially in that part of my body.
Don't worry, mate. We'll sort something out.
Oh, well, you may have got the devilish good looks, but only one of us got the brains.
The way things are starting to look, we're in for some challenging times ahead. So don't be like Shane.
I'm telling Mum.
Okay, bro. There's heaps we can do in our own backyards to become more resilient. This machine we're all attached to likes us to be weak and dependent. Now, I'm not talking about raging against the machine. I'm just talking about not being the machine's bitch. I'm also not saying that everyone should do what I do. We all have different needs, skills and challenges after all. For the last couple of years, I've been enjoying the mental and physical benefits of going to my local gym a couple of times a week. But like so many other local businesses, gyms have had to close their doors. My first reaction? I'm going to lose all my gains. But then I thought, hang on. So now I'm enjoying rediscovering some of my local bush tracks on my mountain bike and exploring some alternative exercises around the house. I've suffered from a number of different autoimmune conditions and allergies for most of my life. And traditional Western medicine has had little to nothing to offer me other than various steroidal applications and anti-inflammatories. And then I discovered a bloke named Wim Hof. And the game got changed. Wim, aka the Iceman, teaches about the healing properties of exposing your body to cold temperatures. So now I've taken to starting my day with an icy winter plunge. I've also been into his freaky breathing techniques and enjoying the benefits of getting high on your own supply, as he puts it. I'm not really trying to suggest what works for me will work for you. I guess this is just all about taking the blinkers off, trying something new, and taking back the control. So here's just a snapshot of what I get up to in my backyard to stay strong, healthy, and happy. Because isn't that what life's all about? Shall we begin? Let's. Isn't she beautiful? Look at that. Why not employ yourself a million of these little minions and start yourself a honey factory? Three buckets, well, in the making anyway. Final strain. Roughly filtered just how I like it, with all the good bits. End stage beeswax cooling nicely. Over here we've got the next pot boiling away, ready to pour through our mesh gauze into the bucket. Beeswax candles, here we come. I like to think of beeswax as the stored energy of the sun. I think it's kind of cool that we can take that stored energy that is ultimately turned from flowers into wax, into candles, and illuminate our house. Does anyone notice anything unusual about any of these Banksia cones? Oh, that's not a Banksia cone. That's a swarm. You're guilty. So all you got to do, if you want to get yourself some bees, is plant yourself a bee tree. Just kidding. Bees don't grow on trees, but sometimes you'll find them in them, just like this swarm. It's only a little one. The same thing happened this time last year. I got a tiny little swarm off one of my other hives, and I managed to get it through, and I've just harvested some honey from it. So it's worth the effort. Let's see if we can give these girls a new home, and maybe even see the queen while we're at it. Speaking of our queen, there she is. Beautiful, healthy looking golden queen. Doing what we can to work one-handed. I've actually pre-stocked this box with some supplies, given that we are now in the middle of autumn, so it's very late to be establishing a new colony. I put a couple of nice big frames of honey in there, which I've pinched off a couple of my other colonies. I'm sure they won't mind too much. Put them all in there and close her up. So 24 hours later, after we shook our swarm into our box, you can see I've narrowed the entrance there with a couple of pieces of foam and they're struggling with that 1B gap entrance that I've made for them. The reason I've done that is because of all these neighbouring larger colonies up in my apiary. They're very much likely to rob these relatively weak bees out, this relatively weak colony out, of their bonus resources, which will be the secret to their success really, but it also could be the reason for their demise if not for this narrowed entrance. I might, once they've established, after a couple more days, open that up a little bit more, but let's have a look inside to see how they're going. So we've got 2 frames of honey, one here and one here, and one recently drawn from what we call sticky frame from a recent harvest, but we've got good coverage in this section here by all the bees. Hopefully they've even started to draw out some comb. Let's just check that out. They're just getting started there. Oh, and there we go. Some good action going on. That foundation, you can see how the bees have already started drawing that comb out. It's not bad work for a small colony, given that they've only been at it for 24 hours. Good stuff. So here we are, Aussie backyard food, coming straight at you from the eye of the swarm. Check out all those bees. I lost track of the last one, so the mission for today is to watch where they go. Where are they going? Look at that. They seem to be clustering around the top of that hive. So this is where they've ended up. It's got me a little bit puzzled because it's actually Anzac Day today, which means it's, well, closer to the end of autumn, going on winter than it is the warmer months and the usual springtime that you'd expect to see a swarm occur. And this is the second one I've had in as many weeks. The other thing that's puzzling to me is the fact that it's settled on the front of this healthy pre-existing colony. Smoke to push them in and down. Hive mat. And we're good. Final resting place for these guys in amongst the other hives. The apiary, I should call it, and just create our one bee-sized gap so they don't get robbed out from all their goodies. And she's good to go. And there's our other little swarm down there in the garden. You see that from the other day. Its final resting place will be up here. So yeah, anyone want some bees? A few years back, I decided to start hunting wild game for food, and the idea of doing this with a bow and arrow appealed to me. Little did I know how difficult this goal would be to realise. The daily practice, developing focus, building upper body strength and form, which occasionally resulted in a well-tuned arrow being loosed, paradoxing as it left the string, then quietly arcing through the air towards that small spot on the target. The endorphin rush from a successful shot, feeding grey matter and cementing muscle memory. I don't pretend to have mastered this pursuit, or even that I ever will. I've learnt that my aim is to be just that little bit better than I was yesterday. When I started out towards this goal, it was all about obtaining clean red meat for myself and my family. I now realise that I've gotten so much more than I ever could have expected from this journey. Trying to develop a feeder that keeps the rats at bay. So you can see Mark 1 around the back there, but Mark 2 I put a bit more of a substantial bottom on that I can screw just a plastic lid off a container on, because the key is just to allow the chooks to get one grain at a time and not to have the excess fall to the ground. It seems to be working alright. I don't ever think we should consider food waste as garbage, as it's a valuable resource which a lot of people throw away, but no food waste ever leaves our place in the form of garbage. It all goes to the chooks. And of course the laying boxes over here, which never seem to get any eggs in them. Let's see if we can find some. It's like a mystery egg. There they are. They'll never lay them where you want them to. So what is it that goes into having healthy, happy chooks? Well, it's basically the 4 G's. Greens, grit, grain, and grubs. Let's have a look at that. Greens, well, when you've got partially confined chooks like mine, which is the way I choose to keep them, greens come in the form of vegetable offcuts, and of course weeds. That's an added motivation for me to stay on top of my weeds around the garden. Grit comes in the form of little stones and perhaps a little bit of supplementary shell grit to boost their calcium intake, because let's face it, an eggshell a day is a real drain on a chook, and sometimes they might not be able to find that, particularly in an enclosed area. I purchased a bit of supplementary mixed grain from my local supplier. A $30 bag usually lasts me about 6 to 8 weeks. And the grubs, well, the chooks find them on their own. I provide them with a lot of offcuts from around the garden as litter in the chook pen, which gradually breaks down, forming a beautiful substrate which I often use as potting mix or spread around my fruit trees. That really attracts a lot of different insects and grubs into their pen, which they will dig away and find on their own. So as you can see here, the soil beneath all my garden offcuts is beautiful potting mix that's full of insects that the chickens just can't get enough of. And as you can see, they do all the aeration for me, which then results and flows off into a lot of other benefits around the garden. As you can see, this lovely choco vine here, chock-a-block with chocos. Not everyone's favourite. But you'll soon find there's a lot of other choco lovers out there. Whenever I put them out on the street, my excess of course, they always seem to disappear. Usually in the middle of the night. It's time for all the other choco lovers out there to come out of the closet. And in here we've got a winter supply of timber warmth. Warmth for the house and dryness for our clothes. Now I'd say a good chainsaw would have to be one of the most important tools to aid an independent lifestyle. Let's get into it. One side note, after recent experience I would recommend at least giving the safety instructions a cursory skim. And that, my friends, is how we do lunch Aussie backyard food style, with a hint of Sweden. Regularly exposing yourself to cold water might seem counterintuitive to some, but such small stresses like this, or others such as intermittent fasting or sauna, have been shown to be beneficial, promoting recovery, reducing inflammation and boosting immunity. And besides anything else, an icy winter plunge first thing in the morning is a great way of confirming that you are definitely still alive. There's 101 theories out there on how to poach the perfect egg. I can tell you it's got nothing to do with vinegar. It's got nothing to do with putting a little swirl in the water. It's got nothing to do with water depth, water temperature. It's all about the quality and freshness of your bum nugget. I think the best asset you can have to help you deal with whatever life's going to throw at you is up here. And the biggest influence you can have on the health of what's up here is what's down here. And the biggest influence you can have on the health of what's down here is what goes in here. You know, they say an apple a day will keep the doctor away. Just imagine what one of those a day will do for you. God damn. There you go, bro.
Ew, yuck!